Hello everyone, this is Sherry Joy Collier coming to you from my studio in East Tennessee. And I just wanted to do a little video today talking about my own story in terms of what inspired me to paint, what inspires the subject matter that I like to paint. And I just wanted to give you a little glimpse into that. So painting is fun, painting is healing, painting is therapeutic. But I must tell you that the things that I like to paint are different from some other people, and that's kind of what sets different artists apart, is what do they want to focus on. So I have several things, though. I don't just focus on one thing, but I do really love to paint florals. So anything with flowers in it, some botanicals, whether that's just up close paintings of leaves or trees or interesting looking plant life. As you can see, I also like to paint beachscapes, seascapes, landscapes with mountains. Let's see, I think that, well, I like to paint other stuff too, but those are the main categories that I like to paint. And I just kind of wanted to share some of those stories behind why I like to paint those. So first of all, when it comes to flowers, flowers always remind me of little colorful faces. like each flower has its own little unique face, so to speak, and colors and shape. And they're so bright and they're so beautiful. And if you think back, like for me, when I was a little kid, running around in my big backyard in Kalamazoo, Michigan, we had a forest behind our house. And the forest was always kind of this big, dark, mysterious place. It was beautiful, don't get me wrong. But when you're a little kid and you're going into these thick trees with tons of leaves and it's blocking out the light, it can feel a little bit, like what's gonna jump out at me at any moment. And I will never forget, as long as I live, that I would go with my neighbor friend. Her name was Julie, and we would go and we would explore the forest. And as we were kind of walking in and kind of being all, ooh, what's gonna jump out at us? We immediately would spot these little flowers. They were wildflowers called Dutchman's breeches. And they were little white, and they looked like little white pantaloons, breeches. And we later found out that you can't pick them because they're protected, I guess. But we picked them. We didn't pick a ton of them, but we picked some of them. But as you were going along in this kind of darkened forest, and all of a sudden you would see these white Dutchman's breeches, it just lit up. It caused you to not, there was no fear of the forest anymore. Suddenly the forest was this place where you could find really pretty flowers. And it was like, wow, how do these grow? Like they find like the little dapple of sunlight that apparently somehow leaked through all the leafy branches and just allowed those little Dutchman's breeches to grow. Of course, there were other flowers too, wild flowers that grew in the forest. I just can't remember the names of any of them. But there is also one other memory in particular that really has inspired me liking flowers. And it's kind of strange that this inspired this. But anyway, again, me and my neighbor friend named Julie, we were exploring out in my big backyard, and there was this big, so there was a hill that kind of went down and sloped down towards the forest, but then right before the forest, there was another hill that sloped up in the other direction, and it kind of was steep. So one day we were kind of hiking up that hill towards, there's big trees that you could sit in up at the top of that hill. And we saw a dead bird. And we were both just like, oh no, this bird, what happened to this bird? And it must have just fallen from the sky or something, because it didn't have any animal, markings on it that it had been killed by an animal. So I just remember my heart just going out to this poor bird and just feeling so sad for this bird. So so Julie and I went around and we collected wildflowers from wherever we could find them. There, you know, edging along the forest and up on that hill, there was some, and we picked them, and then we created like a little blanket of flowers, and we covered everything but the bird's head in this beautiful blanket, and we even surrounded the bird with flowers. And that was just kind of our way of honoring God's creation, God's bird that he had created, and he cares about every single bird that falls from the sky. And I remember that verse from being little. As a little girl, I remember that verse. And so we created this flower blanket for this bird. So anyway, that's another story that comes to mind when I think of the flowers. When it comes to landscapes, I think growing up and kind of having this, what I think of as kind of a countrified backyard with that forest, I think I've just always been really drawn to nature. And every time I go out and view a mountain, like from afar, and you just see the splendor of it, these big mountains, and the coloration, the variation of colors as the mountain's farther away or as it's closer, and the trees that are close by and how they look compared to the little tiny toothpick trees up on the ridge of the mountain or whatever. I think it's just always made me think about the splendor and the glory of God's creative ability, and that God created so many beautiful, breathtaking landscapes for us to look at. So it just feels like landscapes are truly a gift from God for us to view. Okay, now take it to the ocean. Why do I like to paint beachscapes? I think that when I think about the beach, I go back to my time growing up in Michigan, and we live pretty close to Lake Michigan, which if you know anything about Lake Michigan, it's big. It's a huge body of water. There are waves. It's fresh water. There's every now and then, I remember a season where you would go and you would have to avoid all the dead fish. I don't remember what kind of fish it was, but it would always die in this one certain season. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I think just being by the water, and I remember digging in the sand, and I just remember feeling so warmed by the sun and feeling so calm there as a little kid, a little girl. And then fast forward, we moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, which was very hot. It was the opposite of Michigan. It was very dry desert. And we had a community pool that we could go to. And oh my goodness, I loved to swim. I was a fish. I just loved to swim. I could have gone and swam every single day. And I think during the summer, I probably did swim every single day. So just something about water has always been, it's felt good on my skin. I love to float on water. I remember in that pool at night, especially when it was evening and it was still pretty hot out, but not as hot in Arizona at night. And you could see the stars. So I would float on the pool and just look up and I could see all the stars. Okay, then fast forward, we moved to San Diego. And in San Diego, we had the beach. Oh my goodness. My heart was just in joy at being so close to the beach. So we lived about 30 minutes drive from the beach. And there were many, many beaches. So there was the Carlsbad Beach, there were San Diego beaches, there was the La Jolla Beach that I love to go to. There was Moonlight Beach in Encinitas. I took walks quite often at a little beach called Tamarack Beach in Carlsbad, California. There were beaches in Oceanside, by the pier. Where else? Oh goodness, so many beaches. And every time I would go to the beach, I would just feel myself just calm right down and kind of look out at that big ocean. And it's a whole feast for your senses when you're at the beach, because not only are you seeing all the beauty of the water and the sky and the waves and the sand and the seagulls and all that, but you smell the beach. Like there's a distinct ocean air smell that I just loved. Then there's the sounds of the beach. You hear the seagulls, you hear the waves crashing, and those waves, man, they're powerful. And I experienced the power of the waves. One time I was doing some body surfing, and it kind of threw me up over, and I was still out in deep water, and I didn't know which way was up. So I was trying to swim, and trying to figure out how do I get back up where I can breathe. And it was like very disconcerting for a while there because I couldn't find my way up. I did, obviously, because I'm here to tell about it. But the power, the raw power of those waves reminds me that's just a drop in the bucket compared to God's power. So that's another memory. So let's see, have I covered them all? Beaches, landscapes, flowers, and botanicals. Oh, here's another story. So trees. I loved trees growing up in Michigan. I still love trees, of course. I will never not love trees. But I think as a little girl in Michigan, I particularly loved trees. I think I thought of the trees as friends, really. And trees can kind of be symbolic sometimes of people. So there was one little maple tree in our backyard that I could climb because it hadn't grown so big yet that you couldn't reach where the branches come off. So this one tree had this perfect branch that was straight out, and I could reach it. I could kind of jump up, grab the branch, and pull myself up and climb up. Couldn't do that now, but back then I think I might have been, anywhere from 5 years old, 6 years old, on up to 9 years old. And that tree, that one maple tree that I could climb, became my very dear friend. I would climb up into that tree, and then the leaves would kind of hide me, so people couldn't tell that you were there. And you could just sit on that branch and kind of just watch the world go by. In this case, I wasn't watching a whole lot because our neighbors were kind of spread apart, so I really wasn't watching much in the way of neighbors. Occasionally, a neighbor might come out and I might hear them doing something, but I think mostly I liked observing nature. So I would see the birds, and being in the tree, I could look up and really see birds flying around, landing on branches. And it was a little sanctuary, I think. So that's why I like to paint trees from time to time. I haven't painted a tree in a while, so I'm gonna need to do that. But anyway, this concludes this little story of what inspires the different subject matters that I like to paint. So hope you enjoyed my story time, and tune in. I'll be doing some painting pretty soon, and I'll show you a little part of the process as I prepare to paint flowers or a tree or a mountain landscape. I haven't decided which one I want to do next, so we'll see. Thanks for watching. Take care.